Hola. Hello.
I can't believe another month has passed. Anyway, here's what God's been doing around me, through me, and in me this month. Many people came to Taipei this month, including Pastor Keith. Not only did we enjoy this time of food, fun, and fellowship, but God also reminded me that I'm just playing a small part in a much bigger and greater plan that He has. God has been working not only in Taipei, but in talking to all these people that came to visit, I got to hear how He's been moving in China, Vietnam, and even back in the US. It's also been very clear how God has been working in my classmates. He's been consistently opening doors to share the gospel with them, even bringing some of them to the Alpha launch party. Alpha is an 8-week course that Thrive is hosting for anyone and everyone who has a question about Christianity. Each week, we spend time getting to know each other through games, dinner, and discussions. Talking about things like, who is Jesus and why did He have to die for us? God's also been moving really powerfully in our believers within our church. Just a couple of weeks ago, 2 of my own family group members shared their testimonies and got confirmed. One of my favorite things about God is that He speaks through everything. While on a trip to Taipei Zoo, I was reminded of a sermon that PD once gave. Just as a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly, we too are transformed by Christ. However, that process is not quick, nor is it easy. It requires us to die to our old self, renew our minds, and live in the new. It can be a very scary thing, especially when the world tells us otherwise. But if you give God a shot, He could take something that looks like a dead leaf and make it into this beautiful butterfly. Now, what was the point of me sharing about butterflies? Well, in just the same way, I've been able to watch, witness, and walk alongside the women of Thrive Church as they've gone through their own personal transformations, teaching them how to love God, themselves, and each other. Now, don't be fooled by all these smiling faces. As I shared earlier, this has been a really difficult process. Sometimes, in order for change to happen, you need to do something that you've never done before. While on a hike, God reminded me that there are choices we have to make. Sometimes it's pretty clear and easy, but other times it's not, and we have to make a decision to take the known comfortable trail or to go off track. I definitely walked the more inconvenient trail in regards to my relationships at Thrive. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, it's simple. God was calling me to speak truth in love to people, and that means saying things that people don't want to hear, but is the truth that they need to hear. Though difficult, it definitely led to deeper and stronger relationships with each one of these brothers and sisters. On a class field trip to Maokong, God spoke to me while making tea. I learned a lot through witnessing the refinement process it must go through in order for it to be used. When the season is right, each leaf is hand-picked by the tea maker. In the same way, when God lightens the darkness in our hearts, we can be used as His vessels. But it requires us to leave our comforts, just as a leaf can't remain in the bush and be used. Next comes the fermenting process, which requires the leaves to be tossed around with one another. Similarly, though the body can clash and rub against each other, it is an important step in our refinement process. Afterwards, leaves are fried and then tossed in a similar manner. This reminds me that though relationships get more difficult with time, it's these trials that are necessary for our growth. Next comes the most physically exhausting part of this whole process, the rolling of the tea leaves. Just as leaves are rolled tightly to squeeze all the moisture out of it, we are also called to remove all the things that keep us from fully being used by God. For me, that's my pride. Afterwards, the leaves are placed in an oven to dry. Sounds simple enough, but when I look back at my life, waiting is probably the most difficult thing to do. However, I remember, blessed is she who has believed that the Lord would fulfill His promises to her.
Who knew I could learn so much by making tea?
Hey guys, I just want to thank you again for partnering with me in this journey. It hasn't been easy, and as I shared this month, it really hasn't been easy. Last month, it was more of like a physical sense, being sick, scratching my cornea, getting this weird thing on my toe where my toenail's gonna fall off. But this month was really about this spiritual warfare, which is for real. It is real life, it happens, and it's really presented itself in the way of my relationships and just how difficult it can be, especially when you're doing life together day in and day out, and you're really digging deep in these places that people like need to grow in, and it's not easy. If you want to grow, you have to do something you've never done before. And again, as you dig in those places, it's really difficult because the deeper and deeper you get, that's where the really hard rocks are. That's where the thorns are. And in order to take those things out, you have to cut them out. And, you know, we don't want to do that. And so that's why it's been so difficult. God has really been teaching me how to love and what love really means. And God's love isn't just a fluffy, lovey-dovey stuff that like, oh, he loves you no matter what, which is true, don't get me wrong, he does. But love also looks like speaking truth in love, the love that comes through discipline. And in a way, I feel like God has given me this opportunity and chance to show that kind of love, love of a father that disciplines the children whom he loves. And what I feel like God has allowed me to do is use me as a vessel to show that, really speaking things that are not what people want to hear, but are the things that they have to hear in order for them to grow. And so, you know, when you are the deliverer of that kind of news, people hate you. But what it did in me and what I'm really grateful for is it really challenged me to really stick and really hold on to God and remind me that, you know what, I was exactly the same way. But what got me through it was really holding on to the gospel, which is that I am a sinner, but Jesus loves me. And regardless of what I've done, he sacrificed his life in order that I may have life, but not only life to live my own, but to have a life and a relationship with him eternally. So with that, I mean, that's what's kind of what God's always brought me back to keep me holding on, that even when you try to love people in the way that he did, right? And they reject you, you can still hold on. But what was beautiful is in this month of really struggling through that, really grinding through that, God actually ended up redeeming every single one of those relationships. And man, did that challenge me, but I'm so grateful because if anything, it strengthened our relationships through this process. But not only that, in kind of wrestling through this, it's also brought me through a season of reflection. And so because, you know, Thanksgiving just passed, what I'm really thankful for is rejection. And I know that makes no sense, but in a way, in reflecting and just being rejected over and over again this month, I've really gotten to look back in some of those times in my life where I was rejected either by a crush or an ex or just like people in general, or just times in my life where I didn't feel like I fit in, or just things didn't go my way. I got rejected by people, or like, I don't know, just rejection in general. Even though at the moment it felt so difficult and hard and just like, the end of the world, I could look back now and see through, it's like a pattern, but every time I got rejected, the season that came right after that was like the season of growth. Because what I realized was my worth is not in those things, not in that relationship, not in finances, not in the status of a job, but it just strengthened my identity in who I am in God, who I am as his daughter. And yeah, so I mean, I could give you a specific story about something that happened recently, but you're just gonna have to VChat me to hear it. It's a good one, so I really suggest you hit me up. But anyway, I am so thankful for all this rejection because it gave me a glimpse of what Jesus went through, and not even close to what he went through, but just a little taste to see what that looked like to be rejected, but also overcome it, live through it, rise above it, and really love regardless. And it just reminds me of one of my favorite scriptures. Therefore, like looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross. And it goes on, but that's something that I always hold on to, that in the midst of suffering, in the midst of rejection, in the midst of a great difficulty, I could go through it with joy, not because what's happening is good, but because I know that there's something greater thereafter. So anyway, I'm done with storytelling. I just want to, again, thank you for being with me through this process. And yeah, thank you. It means a lot. I know I don't get to reach out to you guys individually, but to know that I have you guys back home means so much. And yeah, I like, sometimes I like look back at these pictures, and if you want to send me pictures, you could be on my wall. But I really am thankful for each and every one of you. And yeah, God bless. Peace.